still part of the corpse is remaining, and they will eat the rotting flesh and they will drink any blood that is left over from a skull that they keep. This would have to be one of my most bizarre cases, and this is why I'm telling this story. So a few years ago, I had a lady leave a message on my phone and ask me to call her the next day at midday. Now, she had only left her phone number and her first name, and that was it. But because she had left this message, I was able to connect. And I had a look into it that night just to see what I could see before I actually spoke to her the next day. So I kind of had an idea of what was going on and why she was calling. So that night I went in and I did my normal meditation, and then I connected into her energy. And as soon as I did, I was taken to a house. It was like an old mansion. It was really dark and it had 2 levels. And I was looking inside this house and I could see these people walking just from one side of the room to the other, or up on the next level it was across like a landing, back and forth, and it was the same pace, it was the same type of people, and there probably would have been about 50 of them. And they just kept on walking backwards and forth. Nothing else was really happening. And I noticed that they had black hair. It was almost like dreadlocks. And they all had these white faces, and they all had like a darker skin tone. But they had these white, it was like white painted faces. And as I watched them, I noticed that there was a chair down on the lower floor on my left-hand side, and it had been turned around so the back of the chair was facing me. And as I noticed this, I saw the chair slowly turn around, and then I noticed that there was a lady sitting in the chair. Now, she also had the dark hair and white painted face, and she was staring straight at me. And that's when I knew she had seen me. And I knew that she knew that I was looking in and watching what was going on, and she didn't like it. So she sat there, and as she stared at me, I thought, okay, I've got as much information as I'm going to get here. I have no idea what I'm looking at, but I know I'm looking at something that is not right in this woman's energy, and for some reason these beings, these entities, these spirits are around her. So the next day, when I went to give her a call at midday, I picked up the phone, went to dial the number, and then I heard in my head, overseas. And I thought, okay, that's my guides telling me something, but I didn't understand what that meant. But straight away I then got the idea to go and just do a quick Google search. So I went to my computer and I didn't know what to Google, so I just Googled black hair, white faces. So I'm going through all of these images, and I started to come across these same images, the white faces and the black hair, and the people looked Indian. And I clicked on the images and it took me to a site that explained that these people were called the Aghori. Now, the Aghori, I'd never heard of them before, but after doing some research, apparently they sit further down on the River Ganges from where the funerals are taking place, which is when they put the bodies onto like a pyre and they set them alight, and then they send them down the Ganges. Now, the Aghori are a type of religious group, and what they do is when the bodies on the pyres come down and they haven't fully burnt, and they still part of the corpse is remaining, they will take the bodies off, and they will eat the rotting flesh, and they will drink any blood that is left over from a skull that they keep. Now, they do this because they believe that it brings them closer to God. Now, what they also do is they continue to burn the bodies, and they use the ash from the burnt bodies to cover their faces and part of their bodies. And that's where the white faces, the white painted faces of what I was seeing was coming into it. So back to my client, I got on the phone to her, and before she could say anything, I said, I just need to know, have you been to India in the last 3 months? And have you been to a funeral or a festival of the dead or something on the Ganges in that time? And she said that she was a professional who every 3 months would go over to India to volunteer in an orphanage. And she had actually just got back from India not that long ago. She also told me that she had been to a festival on the Ganges, and that as a woman, she wasn't meant to be there, but she was a guest for her family, and there was no male family members left in the country, so she went instead of a male family member. Now, this lady had been having quite a lot of issues, and when we looked into it, they were related to what was happening and what had happened in India, and since that time she had been there. So she decided to engage my services, and I told her that I would be able to do the work within the next week. So that night, as usual, I went in and I started my own meditation for myself. I decided that I would have a night off and not do any clients. So I was having this beautiful meditation for myself, and then all of a sudden this woman came straight into my face. And it was the woman from the chair in the image and the visualization that I had seen from this client. And this woman said, "Who do you think you are?" Now, normally my ego would say back, "Well, who the hell do you think you are?" But that didn't happen. My higher self came down immediately. My ego was pushed aside, as sometimes happens in these situations. And I was then my higher self was talking through me, but I was also sitting on the side listening as my ego. It's a very strange experience. It feels normal at the time, but you can feel and understand from both perspectives. It's quite bizarre though. So instead, my higher self said, "You are not to be here. You are not allowed here. You are not allowed in this woman's presence, in her energy, and you are to leave." And this woman had this piercing, evil gaze, which was like threatening, and she was right up in my face. And then as soon as my higher self said that, she backed off and then she disappeared. And that's the last of what I saw of her that night. So then my ego's come back in and gone, "Hey, that's not what I would have said. I would have said this." But anyway, my higher self took over, so it is what it is. And then my higher self said, "Well, that's why I came down and spoke and not you." So later in the week, I completed this work, and during that time, I did find out that what happened with these Aghori people was that when they passed away and they went to cross over, they got to the tunnel where they were transcending across, and they realised that they were going to the same place as everybody else, every other normal person. Every other person hadn't had to eat rotting corpses, hadn't had to drink human blood, and hadn't had to do the things that they had done all of their life to get to a point where they were closer to God. And so they realized that as they were going to that place where everybody else went, no, this is not how it's meant to be. This is not meant to be what happens. So they decided to stop and not cross over. So they stayed here, and there was quite a few of them which had gathered together at the time. And when they saw my client's white light, they'd been hanging around for a long time. When they saw, because my client was such a beautiful soul, such a would give her services, give her time and her professional services to other people. She had this beautiful white soul energy coming through her crown chakra. Now they were attracted to that. They saw that as the white light of God, and so they were attracted to that, and they came and they attached themselves to her. So they had been waiting for a long time, I don't know how many years, to find something that was closer to God, and they had missed the opening of where they were going to cross over. And so they were kind of stuck here, and they radiated towards her. Now, I crossed these people over, and once I explained what was happening and where they were going and how it all worked, and they could see their family on the other side, they were able to cross over. If you'd like to hear more of my stories, please like this video and click the subscribe button so you're notified each time. Thanks for watching.